probably while we wait for people from the Nile, we'll start with Netravati. The topic of the discussion is Netravati to Nile. The moment we think about the topic, we feel it's pretty vague. What has Netravati got to do with Nile? That's the very thought I had when this topic was given to me by the organizers. But come to think of it, Netravati and Nile both have sustained civilizations for thousands of years. That's one commonality, but over the years, there's several other commonalities like the climate change, the security aspect, and pollution, conservation, the impact of huge human populations which these rivers are sustaining. So there are several commonalities. So I wish to take this discussion covering, since we have three experts from three different fields, Commodore Udai, Professor Raghu, Murtugudde, and Giridhar, Kamath sir. One, we have an expert in strategic affairs. One is a great climatologist and a conservationist who has a lived experience of saving rivers. So given this wide discussion, I want to start off with the security aspect, then move on to climate and then conservation and what we need to do as an audience and as a people living on these great rivers. So, I mean, since the picture has already been put up, so it's easier to visualize where's Netravati and where's Nile and what lies in between. So coming to the strategic aspect, Commodore, I would like to start with you. What exactly is the contribution of these river civilizations to nations' strategic dialogue? For example, Nile, when we talk of Nile, we think of terms like Egypt is the gift of Nile, and there is some strategic value because of the geopolitical tensions around that area. Can we extrapolate those security scenarios or the maritime aspect to Netravati? If else, how? How do we do it? And what other security scenarios do you see between these two great rivers?
Thank you. This is a nice question. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, I speak at universities and colleges to raise maritime consciousness. Though we are a maritime country, we really are not, we think like a continental nation. So I was very happy when we got this topic. And both the Netravati and the Nile flow into the seas, one to the Arabian Sea, one to the Mediterranean. And those seas are what connects us. We are actually two great ancient civilizations, the Egypt civilization and the Indus Valley civilizations, going back to 3000 BCE. Both our countries are 4,000 to 5,000 miles apart, kilometers apart. Yet we are neighbors. How are we neighbors? Because of the seas. The seas have no boundaries, they have no barriers, they connect us. So the freedom of the seas allows us to be neighbors. This can't be done over land. There are no barriers, as I said, or fences or at sea, unlike on land. Now, as I said, we have ancient trade relations. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, India traded in spice, in muslin. Egyptian mummies were secured in Indian silk, muslin, pearls. Egypt sent us gold, silver, wine, glass, linen, horses also. Our sailors of that time were fantastic people who used the monsoon winds. I'm sure you've heard of Mausam. Okay, the project of the MEA, Matsya Yantra, magnetic compass, and we sailed. Connectivity, this is the first internet, going by seas. Trade, commerce, culture, religion flourished. Now, go to the next one, please. Now, if you see, go to the next one, I've covered this. Next, please. Yeah. Now, both countries are at crucial maritime crossroads, right? Egypt controls the port of Suez, Suez Canal. And one side you have Mediterranean, other side you have the Red Sea. Red Sea comes down okay, and joins the Arabian Sea thereafter. India, as you can see, is the focal point of the Indian Ocean. We are the only ocean, we are the only country to have an ocean named after us, Indian Ocean. No other country in the world has. And the sea lines of communication, you see those white lines, if you can see it, they connect the Pacific with the Atlantic through various choke points. Right? So the sea lines of communication are the arteries of the global economy. Right? Global supply chain stability is very, very important. Now, you know what happened during COVID-19. There were disruptions. So the threats are plenty. Next, please. Next. You see, there is piracy, there is terrorism, there is human trafficking, there is drugs and weapons smuggling. Next. You see, do you recall this ship running aground? MV Evergreen runs aground for 7-8 days, billions are lost. Ships are now to go around the Cape of Good Hope. That is 6,000 kilometers plus and 14 days more, right? So in the Marines, we have a shared responsibility. Next one, please. Now, Houthis in Yemen are targeting merchant ships. Okay, again, some ships are forced to go around Cape of Good Hope. Now, you know what? Israel has just recognized Somaliland. Okay, yeah. Saudi Arabia has just attacked some southern Yemen. So this place is going to be a hot spot. It already is and will be. So the marine environment, next please. So what can happen in Mangalore? We are a narrow harbor. Okay, the only port in Karnataka. The Netravati, as you said, flows next door. So terrorists can close this port anytime. Cyber attack can force a ship to go aground. Okay, next please. Now seas and the maritime, seas are the last frontier of mankind. Over 70% of the Earth's surface is covered with water. And only 5% of the underwater world has been surveyed. You've gone to space, you've gone to Mars, but what about the underworld? Just 5%. And this is a very big emerging field, as you can see. So next. So sorry, go back please. Yeah. So we have to mitigate, we have to work together, all countries, not just one, for oil spills, for plastic pollution, climate change, habitat destruction. All these are part of, I'm sure my colleague here will cover them in detail, so I won't waste my time on that. Next. Oceans are vast. No nation or navy can go it alone. And maritime cooperation is a key pillar for all our maritime strategies. Next. So we have been sea blind for centuries, but there is a reawakening happening thanks to the government. I'm not a spokesperson for the government. Nevertheless, I must say that. Next. So the Prime Minister's, addressed the UN Security Council, the first leader to do that on enhancing maritime cooperation. He was the first leader. Next. In any document that you see, when Prime Minister goes abroad or somebody comes here, it is about maritime security, maritime cooperation, maritime connectivity, freedom of navigation, rule-based order. You please note it. Everywhere, why is he speaking? Because it's extremely important for a maritime nation like us. We are actually an island nation. 3 oceans, Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and Indian Ocean. Okay, next please. So there is India's vision of Saga, security and growth for all in the region. I'm sure you've heard about it. The Prime Minister said this in 2015. Then he recently articulated about Mahasagar, mutual and holistic advancement for security and growth across the regions. Then of course our Indo-Pacific policy, maritime vision, blue economy, Sagarmala project, all are required. Safe sea is required for each of these. If you want to be a Viksit Bharat, safe sea is important. Next. So we are doing a geopolitical balancing in India and Egypt. Actually, it's not India and Egypt. Several nations. Okay. Several nations coordinate positions and voices in international fora. Not just for the global south, but for global commons. The seas are the global commons of mankind. It is a common heritage of mankind, actually beyond 200 nautical miles, which is the EEZ. That is called global commons. So we are talking of global south, we are talking of global commons, these oceans, the last frontier of mankind. And finally, to end, next please. So ancient linkages continue even today. What started in 3000 BCE continues today. We have strategic, we have maritime and naval cooperation with Egypt. Not with Egypt, just Egypt, several countries. But because of the topic, because of the time, I am not expanding. Safe and secure seas are very much required. Last slide. So the Rig Veda says, Jalamevi yasya balameva tasya, which means he who commands the sea is all powerful. Now I have put this slide ulta. Why? To show you how the seas influence us. If you see a normal map like this, you will not realize. Now you see how the waters influence our thinking. Should actually. They don't do enough, that's a different matter. Next. Thank you. Wishing you fair winds, calm seas. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that great presentation. I mean, you've covered everything, in fact. In one of your slides, you mentioned about climate change, how it's interlinked with our global security.
I didn't want to
go that's where I'm coming to. Professor Raghu, we have covered this aspect of maritime security. But when we place Nile with Netravati, what common climate stress aspects do you see between these two rivers? What is the learning which we can have here? And the second question which I would like to ask is, why are these debates about rivers or the climate stress happening more in the global south as compared to the global north? Is it a global south problem which, because of population, mismanagement, is it because of that we are losing out, or if you could please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the commander said very eloquently how closely we are connected, even though we are in different sides of the ocean. But we can go back actually much, much further. If we go back almost 200 million years, India and Africa were actually connected. India was connected to Madagascar, Madagascar was connected to Africa. Somewhere down the line, Madagascar and India split off, then India split off again, and India started drifting northward some 70 million years ago. Now you imagine Western Ghats, where the Netravati is born and runs into the Arabian Sea, right? The Western Ghats are actually 115 million years old, maybe even older, and Himalayas are only about 10 to 30 million years old. We think so much about the Himalayas. So you imagine that when India was to the south of the equator, there was no monsoon. Monsoon only started when India crashed into the Asian continent and started pushing under, and Himalayas came up. So the monsoon we now know got established only about 10 million years ago. So now you consider that Western Ghats is a hotspot for biodiversity. So how biodiversity has evolved along the way as India made a long trip across the equator to where it is now, and it's still moving north, by the way, at several centimeters per year and pushing up the plates, and the Himalaya is rising by about 1 centimeter per year. So the rainfall has allowed the biodiversity to evolve and evolve again over time. In the meantime, Africa also moved slightly north, and the African highlands formed. Why is that important? Because the Nile is made up of the Blue Nile and the White Nile. The Blue Nile originates in Lake Victoria, and the White Nile originates in Lake Tana. Both Victoria and Tana are in African highlands. How are we connected to African highlands? Because the monsoon winds, which come from across the equator, actually use the African highlands to turn and come towards India. Okay? So you have to remember, Nile is almost 6,600 kilometers long. Netravati is hardly 100 kilometers long. But both hold significant importance for both the cultures. Africa was actually very green. The Saharan part was very green a few thousand years ago when the last ice age ended. And the civilizations have expanded and collapsed around the Nile. India has had rich civilizations also during this time. And the trade started, the monsoon is a word that actually comes from Arabic, which means mausam, which means season. So they were using the changing winds to come and go. So climate has always been a big part of how the rivers evolve, how they will continue to evolve, and how we use them. So the pressures that you are talking about, population growth, urbanization, deforestation, fisheries, and of course all the dams we build, right? So both are kind of mesocosms of the world. You can think of them as small systems which represent the world in terms of how humanity interacts with the natural world. When we do not behave like coherent bacteria or gut microbiome for the earth in which we live, we can become a cancer of the earth, which is what we are trying to avoid, which is what he's trying to help people to think about. So climate change is not just about what is happening now. We are doing something now which is moving very fast. So we not only hit the Western Ghats and the Nile basins with climate change and warming, but we are also changing the rainfall in such a way. Western Ghats, if you think about its long north-south, the southern part is actually getting reduced rainfall, northern part is getting increased rainfall. Why? Because the warming over the deserts in the Middle East is shifting the winds over the Arabian Sea, and it's moving rainfall northward. But even more detailed, the rainfall now, it doesn't matter what the total amount is. How it falls is the most important thing. If you get 800 millimeters, which is less than before, but it rains in 30 days instead of being spread over 100 days, then the total amount almost doesn't matter. How much it rains matters, and we don't know how to handle that. So Lake Victoria, for example, is called Darwin's Pond. Everybody knows Charles Darwin. Why? Because it used to have hundreds of species of little fish called cichlids. In the 1950s, they introduced something called Nile perch, introduced for fishing purposes, and that went around eating all the cichlids. Finally, they woke up and started doing preservation efforts. Cichlids have recovered, and they are behaving very differently. They are going into places they never went before. They seem to have become braver in terms of going to where actually there are predators. So we say nature makes the rules and biology finds the loopholes. It's the same for vegetation, it's the same for fish. We are the only one who don't seem to evolve so nicely. So these are the pressures we are facing, and this is a national security issue because you imagine that the Middle East is warming so much, and we are trying to reduce the use of oil. And oil is the only thing they have. If in 30, 40 years, if oils are completely replaced by renewable energies, and it's hot as hell in the Middle East, that problem will not stay there. It will come all the way into Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, and India. Around India, you have sea level rise, extreme events, cyclones. All these climate change issues are national security issues. So they're all connected.
So, as I understand, it's more of a global south phenomenon, something we have to handle. We are either through policies or through governmental or intra-governmental interventions, we have to handle it at some point.
Sorry, you asked about global south. Yeah. I will tell you why the tropics warm the most. So I said Middle East. There's only other region that warms fast is the Arctic. Arctic is very cold. It warms fast because of the way ice and temperatures work together. Ice reflects a lot of sunlight. If you reduce ice, it will absorb more energy, so it will get warmer and warmer. The way the climate change works, you are already getting a lot of energy from the sun. You are trapping more energy by increasing greenhouse gases. So you are going to warm the tropics more, and global south is essentially the tropics, except for Haiti and Dominican Republic, which are at higher latitudes. So this becomes a global south problem because our population density is very high. So our exposure to vulnerability, our exposure and vulnerability to climate hazard is very high. Okay, and our governments, we are a democracy for a long time, but if you look around us, there is not much democracy. If you go to Africa, there is not much democracy. So if you look around the global tropics and global south, democracy is kind of weak or lacking. So this exacerbates the problems of global commons. We are sharing oceans, which is a global common, as you said.
Right.
We are sharing forests, right? If, for example, Western Ghats is a moisture source for 30% of the rainfall over Tamil Nadu. Think about it. The vegetation over the Western Ghats stores and releases moisture, which produces 30% of the rain over Tamil Nadu. So if we deforest Western Ghats, we get rainfall deficit over Tamil Nadu. If Middle East and North Africa warm, we get the problem. So we are very closely connected because everything moves fast in the tropics because Earth's rotation has very little effect in low latitudes. Cyclones and hurricanes are very much a tropical phenomena. A lot of the tropical countries, global south is very vulnerable to storms. And with the oceans warming, now storms bring much more rain. Okay? So imagine the cyclone numbers may not increase, but you will get much more rain. So it's very much a global south problem. How to solve it is much more difficult. Under the UNFCCC, everybody is trying. The rich countries are busy telling us that because we have population problem, it's our problem. I'll take another minute. Yeah. But imagine, we are 1 billion, 1.4 billion, whatever. Our emissions per capita are 3 tons per person. US has an emission of almost 15 tons per person. Europe has 8. China has 7. Right? So even if we killed all the poor people since Industrial Revolution, we'll have almost the same emission because rich people are consuming so much. Right? And even in India, it's 3 tons per person because rich people are living just like the West and very poor people are living at less than 1 ton per person. So our future, our destiny depends on us. We need to solve energy, water, agriculture, transportation, buildings, infrastructure, and Adani is everywhere building ports, right? So we are really connected in that sense, and we must find a way. Global South is just a term, but we must find a way to make it a governance body in the future.
I mean, that's a great overview of the climate challenges and the learnings and what we need to do ahead. So right now, we have covered the security aspect, what it means to the country's security, the maritime security, then the climate aspect. So much before the era of globalization, the nature itself is completely globalized, right? When everything is interlinked. But Kamath sir, you have been ace conservationist. You have the lived experience. So that's where I want to draw the attention. I mean, maritime security, the climate is something a common man may not be able to comprehend. So what does this climate change or the rivers, the way they are changing, how does it affect the common man? And in your experience, what does conservation actually mean of these rivers, of the river ecosystems? So how do people respond to it? Based on your experience, if you can elucidate, it will be great.
Basically, as you said, I'm not a conservationist as it. Okay, I call myself an eco-enthusiast. I'm interested in this subject, and Raghu sir is my sir on net because he has certain content on the net which every one of you have to go through. It is an university by itself. Okay, so influenced by people like Raghu sir and TVR from Indian Institute of Science, I am dragged into this. Now, first of all, conservation, why we have to conserve this, and who has to do this, and how this is to be done. Okay. Now, first, being the citizen of this country, we go by Constitution. Okay. Right. Article 21 of the Constitution gives us right to life. And if the right to life has to go on, it has to happen. 3 fundamental things are necessary, that is food, water, good air. Okay, if you have to have these 3 things, this doesn't go on its own, it is a complex thing, it is connected to one another. Now, the world calls this entire stretch of Western Ghats as Western Ghats, but we used to call it as Sahyadri. Sahyadri, the tolerant mountain range. And this Sahyadri, maybe about 500 to 600 years back, if it was so much, the green cover in Sahyadri was so much. Today it is only this much. And if this much doesn't come to this much, then all of us have to get involved in this. That is why conservation is necessary and it is inevitable. So this Sahyadri is not just a mountain stretch around 1,600 kilometers south of Gujarat up to the tip of Indian Peninsula. This Sahyadri is the water tower for the Indian Peninsula. So if the Nile is flowing about 6,600 or 7,808 kilometers, this Sahyadri has east flowing rivers and west flowing rivers. So east flowing rivers, you take Krishna, which flows for 1,400 kilometers. Then we have Godavari, which flows for 1,465 kilometers. We have Bhima, which flows for around 800 kilometers. We have Kaveri, which flows for around 865 kilometers. These are all rivers flowing to the east. Yeah. Okay? And we have many smaller network of rivers which flows to the west. Okay? And throughout, if you add all these rivers and their draining area, they contribute more than what Nile contributes to this globe. That is why these rivers are important. Now coming to Netravati. Now Netravati is a small river. It runs for about 103 kilometers. And this Netravati is and has been in this region for maybe millions of years. That's why in all our Bhuta Pardhanas, when the Bhuta say Bobariya Bhuta, it has a Pardhana which say, before I come to you, I will take 3 dips in the Ganga. Ganga means for all this, Ganga is the nearest Tirtha Kshetra of the common river. So it has been there live and it is running, it is current. So whenever there is a project that comes on this Netravati, then we have to be aware. Why we have to be aware? Because in this world, in this planet, 71% of our planet is water. Okay? And in this planet, 97% of the water that is available in this planet is not drinkable. It is in the ocean. Only 3% of the water available in this planet is usable by human beings. Out of this 3%, about 2.5% of water in this planet is locked in glaciers, and it is the source for rivers that originate from glaciers. Okay? Only 0.0001% of the water are fresh water which runs through the river, of which Netravati is one. Okay, you have kept 20 liters jar there.
Right.
If there are 5 20 liters jars, which is 100, what Netravati or what we get from out of rivers is only 1 teaspoon of water. So it is so precious.
Very precious.
It is so precious. Okay. So now, why do we have to conserve? I said we have the right and we have the obligation or the responsibility also. Article 51A of the Constitution casts this responsibility on every citizen to conserve and improve the nature. Exactly. Okay, which includes forest, then lakes, rivers, wildlife, everything. Okay, this is an obligation put forth by our Constitution. And Article 48A, which speaks about directives, principles for state, that also it mentions in similar words. So that is, we are bound to do this. Now let me share with you my experience or our experience with a project called Etina Hole project. Etina Hole project is a project originally it was a project to divert Netravati river as envisaged by Professor Parameshwar. But then finally it was called as a drinking water project, and it was modeled in such a way that during heavy monsoon near Sakleshpur, there will be a dam built, and from there 24 TMC of water will be pumped up. And through gravitational force, this water will go to Ballari, then Chikballapur and Bangalore rural. So this was the project, and the total cost of the project was around 12,914 initially, then it came to 13,600. Today it has become 24,000 crores. Okay? Let me tell you the timeline. This is very important as citizens of this country. Very, very interesting timeline. On 21st December 2013, Mrs. Natarajan, Jayanti Natarajan, she was the Environmental and Forest Ministry in the UPA government. She resigns. On the same day, additional charges given to Veerappa Moily, Sri Veerappa Moily, who was the Petroleum Minister, 21st December 2013. On 12th February 2014, Government of Karnataka approves Ettinahole project. 12th February 2014, Government of Karnataka approves the project. On 4th March 2014, Sri Veerappa Moily, along with the present Chief Minister, Sri, I don't want to call the names, okay, they lay the foundation stone in Kolara, saying that within 2 years, Kolara, Chikballapur, Bangalore rural will get 24 TMC of water.
From Netravati.
Yes, from Netravati. Okay? And 5th March, this was on 4th March, 5th March 2014, election is declared. And UPA retains both the seats, Kolara and Chikballapur, but could not get a single bucket of water even today. Even today, after 12 years, I am talking about 2014, we are in 2026, after spending nearly 30,000 crores, a single bucket of water is not conveyed there. Okay? And after that 2 elections, UPA lost both the seats, because the moral is, or the story is, people are observing you. Okay, people are observing you. And what is the
affects their lives?
It affects their life. Yeah. And what is the availability of water? According to the study by Professor TVR of Indian Institute of Science, the available water is hardly 9 TMC, not 24 TMC, out of which divertible water is hardly 1 TMC.
Oh, but what was promised was
24 TMC.
24 TMC.
Now let us examine what is TMC and how this is. And this 24 TMC will be pumped only during peak monsoon season. That is June, July, 2 months they said. Even if you take it is 3 months, what is 1 TMC? So to make it very simple, 1 TMC is 1000 million cubic feet. 1000 million cubic feet. So put it in very simple language. If you fill a stadium, cricket stadium up to 20 feet, then 48,000 such cricket stadiums filled up to 20 feet will come to 24 TMC. Okay, and this 48,000 stadiums, if you have to pump in 2 months, it is impossible. Say 100 days, it comes to 4,800, 48 stadiums in a day. In 24 hours, you are supposed to pump 48 stadiums. That means in 2 hours, you have to pump 2 stadiums of water filled up to 20 feet to the upper region, from where it has to go to through gravitation. So that's why it was illogical. The activists or the local people went to the DC, gave representation. Mangalore Bandh was called for, it was successful. Then we had Rasta Roko, around 126 organizations were involved. Then we, in 2014 itself, we went to National Green Tribunal, Southern Bench in Chennai. And 2016 they said, this has to be transferred to Delhi, and it was transferred to Delhi, and 2019 they said it is time barred, we cannot take it.
So it's basically politics and mismanagement, governance.
So that is why I don't depend on politicians.
So, I mean, that's where I want to come next.
Yeah.
I mean, he spoke about the politics of it and misgovernance. At what stage does this misgovernance or, the politics turn into a security nightmare or a security concern? In your experience, I mean, how do you see this politics or the politics of water, if I can say? When does it become a security concern? And, I mean, do we really solve it? Do we have a solution for that?
You ask me?
Yeah.
Or the water?
Asking Commodore, yeah.
I have absolutely no idea what he is. Maybe he is a better person to speak on water.
No, in terms of water security, when does it become a national security threat?
No, let me tell you. You see,
I mean, why I ask this is like politics takes center stage in such cases, especially the example which he elucidated. When does that become a security issue?
No, for us, at least in the maritime front, security of water is important in terms of maritime space. That is what I can talk about. I have very little understanding of what these two gentlemen have said because I don't deal on conservation matter. But security is for us, we have always been sea blind. And the only time we came out of our slumber, Kumbhakarna, whatever it is, in 1999, when we had Kargil. Till that time, none of our security leadership, none of our politicians have any idea about the seas. Okay, 1990 was the first step. And then, if you ask me, the Prime Minister is really a Mahan. Mahan was a great strategist of the US Navy, of the US in fact. And he said the future of the world will be decided on the Indian Ocean. Today, we are saying that in the 21st century, the destiny of the world will be decided in the Indian Ocean. Because people realize the importance of the seas as waterways. Exactly. Okay, so that the security leadership, the national leadership has understood. So many of these projects that we are seeing in terms of security is important, especially for energy. Security of the seas around us, very important for energy. I think about 80% of our oil is imported from West Asia and West Africa. All these come through the seas. Today, we are threatened. If there is why are we worried about Red Sea? Because we can't pick up oil from Jeddah. All of us are now going to Persian Gulf, and piracy is there of Somalia. So it affected our security. We have, for the last several years, from 2008, we have positioned one ship permanently in the Gulf of Aden. So there are merchant ships which are transiting are able to call them if they require assistance. So today, of course, the Navy is spread all around the world. We have something called mission deployment, where even in the Malacca Straits we are deployed. And everything is economy. I'm linking water to economy. Because trade warfare at sea means your economy is strangled, which many people don't understand, that the seas are linked to our economy.
Exactly. And that is linked to security.
Yeah. 95% of our trade by value and 72% by volume go by sea. We are an island nation. Right. So what these waters, these gentlemen speaking about is drinking water and for human consumption. Now, seawater, of course, the salt in our plasma is the same as the salt in the seawater. I think 3% is the figure of salt. So we are connected to the seas, yet we don't see the connection, We don't worry. None of us, there's something called visibility. Out of sight, out of mind. How much can a man see? A man can see only 12 nautical miles. If you stand on, let us say, one of the hills here, maximum you can see 12 miles. And that's why we say the Navy is silent service, because we operate far from land. So people's security of water is important for us. I'm not talking about drinking water. Security of our waters, the 3 oceans, in the Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and Indian Ocean. They're very important. The only ocean to be named after a country, as I mentioned earlier. And now 80% of the trade in this area is extra-regional. So more than we understanding Indian Ocean, the foreign parties understand that Indian Ocean is important. There was a time when it is said that Indian Ocean should be a zone of peace. Today, at any time in the Gulf of Aden and the Persian Gulf on top, there are 120 ships from 13 countries operating. 120 ships. And this is a figure that I picked up from the naval website. Includes our ships.
It's a key geopolitical...
So because geopolitics has changed. Yes. Of course, the Bay of Bengal, now the China is coming in. That's a different part of it. But that is the concept of security of waters. I mean, yes, the water at sea. But the rest, of course, drinking water, the Nile and whatever, they are the experts. I can't venture on that.
And since we are running out of time, quickly, Professor Raghu, see, we have all these concerns, the security concern, then the governance concern. But yet, over the years, we have, the science has improved and we have better hydrological data and how climate change happens, the patterns, everything. Despite all this improvement in science and the data we have, why have we failed to kind of grasp this, the importance of conservation or understanding climate change? Have we not able to pass it on to the people who matter, or what is it in your experience?
I think we have evolved to make mistakes, not by intention, but we make progress and we run very fast in that direction and then realize it's not as holistic as it should be, and it's not new to us. What made something new to us is technology. We are able to destroy things very fast. But this idea that 97% of the water is undrinkable, I have to correct it a little bit, because Israel, for example, solved all its freshwater problem with desalination. India is increasing its desalination by a lot. So 97% of the water is not just sitting there, it is available. But again, we have to be smart with the technologies, getting rid of the brine and so on. So water, ocean water in that sense is not really inaccessible at all. Water you have to think of in terms of quantity, quality, and access. Access is physical access and economic access. You may have physical access, but somebody may have ownership. So if you desalinate and you want to move it to center of India, how will you do it? So when you talk about the Netravati project and 30,000 crores, and I will disagree a little bit. We always say don't trust politicians. I'm not a politician, I'm not affiliated to any party, but I've been working with governments for a long time. And I can tell you, as a scientist, scientists always give a lot of advice to politicians. One thing you have to appreciate, politicians have to make decisions and they win or lose elections. So are they honest? Well, we are not honest, so why should they be, right? So if there is a 30,000 crore project, it's not two ministers that are benefiting from it. There are thousands of citizens who are craving after this money. So society is always involved in big money and big decisions. So how do we develop trust between people and us? So from the climate side at least, lots of advice is being given, but the decisions are not that simple. So there is risk involved in everything. So in that sense, we don't understand conservation, because if you buy a car, immediately you will buy insurance. You will save money for the future of your children. Sometimes even before getting married, people begin to save money, right? But if you say, pay some money for your children's future environment or your children's future water, nobody will pay, because it is a global common. It is a shared resource. They will say, somebody has to pay. Why should I pay? They think somebody will do something. So this is an inbuilt deficiency we have in sharing resources. So we have to get past this, not when we get older, at school.
Right, at school, yeah. Right,
so we have to learn to conserve things and understand the value of shared resources, because as he said, out of sight, out of mind. If you are sitting in Kolar and you are thinking Netravati water will come, Netravati is somewhere you may never see it. So the farmer here is not bothered what he is doing to Netravati. So somebody somewhere have to have the vision of shared resources at country level, and since we are talking about Nile and Netravati, at continental level, and you can think of global south, which you like, but eventually it's a global problem because rainfall here is not determined by what's happening here. As I said, warming over the Middle East is determining rainfall.
It's a great insight.
So now there are no winners and losers. Even rich countries are getting hammered by climate issues, right? Russia lost 75,000 people to a heat wave. France lost some 23,000. You saw the floods last year in Spain and Germany.
Right.
Nobody is immune to climate change anymore. It's a global common problem. So we have to come together somehow. It takes global leadership. Will it emerge? If you look around to what's happening right now with president there and the dictator here and, it's a mess. But where will we be in 10 years? Few kids are here. Their future will hopefully be bright.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shared problem. Finally, Giridhar, Kamath, drawing from what he said.
We need to give time to our audience as
Yeah,
well.
maybe we have time. Just one intervention from him, which I would like to understand is it, shortly, if you can answer, is it a problem with the political will or the people themselves are not really concerned? If you can answer it quickly.
Yeah, no, it's as I said, it's perfectly a shared resources, and when it's a shared resources, if I'm taking, I have to give also. And when, in this direction, when I buy anything from anywhere to take home, I should think whether this is good for the earth or bad for the earth. And if it is bad for the earth, I have to think twice before buying. If this happens with everyone, then I think we are part of this conservation process.
So the concern and the action lies with all of us.
Definitely.
So I think we have time for just two questions, short questions and short answers. So if somebody can hand the mic.
Jain gentlemen, on the sea, more and more shipping companies on the sea.
I think we'll take one more question. One and two, one more. Somebody.
Sir, I can take it.
Yeah.
What is the role of the plastics, which is the concern for the oceans, actually? Maybe that's one. I had that in my mind.
Okay. So you can answer this question.
See, you mentioned about aircraft and ATC. You know, what is that today? Every day a new port is being opened. Number of ports is increasing exponentially. So is the number of shipping companies. I don't have the figures. But the issue simple is that along with the explosion in ports and shipping lines, so is technology. You know, today we have got something called AIS, Automatic Identification System. Today we have satellite. Today we have GPS. Of course, they have their downside as well. So from satellites, we're able to monitor. Through AIS, we're able to monitor. Of course, you can switch off by AIS, but those concerns are being addressed. So basically, after this 9/11 was a turning point in terms of people realized that what has happened, 3 aircraft were flown into, or 2, whatever it is, flown into that World Trade Towers. So basically it was the US which realized that the same thing could happen in the maritime domain. Yeah. So they got about, working. So we had what is called ISPS, International Shipping and Port Security Code. Then we have AIS WHK. So all these are steps aimed at what? To monitor ships, to monitor anything flying in those areas, including aircraft. So whenever today we have in Gurgaon, for example, it will finally become what is called National Maritime Domain Awareness Project. Today it's being run by the Navy because they have the wherewithal. So sitting in Gurgaon, we are connected not only to the satellites, we are connected to I'm talking of surveillance satellites, but also through what is called Rukmini, which is a communication satellite, launched by ISRO for the Navy. So, and we are connected with maritime coordination centers in a number of countries. Singapore, we are talking to online. We're talking to Madagascar. We're talking to Bahrain, where US CENTCOM is. So, around the world, we have developed what is called a maritime domain awareness system. Okay, satellites are one, but aircraft fly. Constantly, you will find that naval aircraft flying, Coast Guard aircraft flying, ships are at sea, and full through data link, all that picture is being transmitted to Delhi and to our coordination centers in Kochi, Chennai, Calcutta, Mumbai. A filtration is done. If something happens, and the Coast Guard is involved in search and rescue. So if something happens, that information straight away passed to other people. There's a hijacking of a ship. Within no time, you will find that for US CENTCOM, for example, there is a UK Trade Office, UK MTO, UK Maritime Trade Office. India, Bombay Wireless is there. So from everywhere, this information, what are we trying to do? We are trying to replicate something which is happening in the air. I'll keep my answers a little long, but
I think that answers your question. Dr. Raghu, if you can answer that about the question of plastics and the ocean.
Yeah, just to conclude, you said ecology. So ships drop a lot of crap into the ocean, and albatrosses and all are found even with lighters and so on in their stomachs. Plus the contrails they produce some thin cloud, which is a global warming agent in the sense it allows sunlight to come in but traps thermal energy. So they do sound pollution, which is affecting dolphins, whales, etc. as well. Microplastics, I mean, you said plastics. Large plastics are a big problem. You find turtles and lots of sea lions, all kinds of animals trapped in plastic. Disbanded nets trap a lot of fish and so on. But now the biggest problem is microplastics and macroplastics, which are found even in our uteruses. Women's fetus is now being crowded out by microplastics. It's found in the brain. Okay, so it's a serious problem. In the ocean, we are finding it all the way to the bottom, and it's found in all fish. So when you are eating, you're pretty much eating fish with microplastics. You just don't know how much. We don't know exactly what the impacts are, but the correlations with heart diseases and so on, even Alzheimer's, is quite high. Okay, so the other problem that's really not well understood is that plastic is very reflective near the surface. It may be changing the dynamics of how ocean and atmosphere talk to each other. It's a bit of a technical detail, but this climate impact, we have no idea. But lots of efforts are going on sweeping up plastics. But unless we stop producing new plastic, nothing is going to happen. And as he said, politicians want to stop new plastic production, but who will prevent them from doing that? Companies. So we are all in this game together. If people are so worried, they have to ultimately push the system towards banning new production of plastics. It's a miracle material, but it's a disaster now.
Thank you, Dr. Raghu. Yeah. So winding up, I mean, it's a huge topic, 3 great experts, and I know 1 hour is not sufficient. But the biggest takeaway has been, while we also require great policies and governance, it also boils down to what we do as individuals, what we practice in our life, and how we react to such situations. So that's been, I think, the greatest takeaway from 3 learned experts. So thank you, big round of applause for all the 3. It's been a learning experience. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that fascinating discussion. We would now like to offer a small token of appreciation to our speakers and the moderator.
I request Shri Nanagaraji to please present the mementos to our respected dignitaries. That brings us to the end of this session. Thank you all for being such a wonderful audience.